I'm Chris Farrell, and this is On Watch. Welcome to On Watch, everybody, the Judicial Watch podcast, where we go behind the headlines to cover news and information that the old legacy media really does not want you to know about. We try to recover some lost history and explain the inexplicable. And today, to help us do that, we have the German lawyer and constitutional law expert, Hans-Georg Maassen. Hans-Georg, welcome to On Watch.
Hi, Chris. Good evening from Berlin in Germany.
Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time. By profession and training, and by your professional experience, you're an attorney, a lawyer, a constitutional law expert, a free speech advocate, an expert on free speech law in Germany. And of course, you also have tremendous experience in the world of security policy because you were the former chief of Germany's security service, the Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution, which I try to describe to my American friends as being something akin to the British MI5. It's the security service, the counterintelligence service for Germany. And you had that role for 6 years. So you're not just an intellectual and an academic and a lawyer, you've actually done the work. You've been working and leading the organization that investigates security service issues.
Yes, it's true. I was responsible for the domestic intelligence here in Germany, right. And we fought against Islamic terrorists and Russia and China, espionage and subversion and so on. And had a very close cooperation with the American friends of CIA, NSA, FBI, and so on.
Sure.
It was a very great time for me for more than 6 years. But today I'm a lawyer, still a lawyer, and I work in the field of constitutional law, foreigners law, public constitutional law, and so on. Yeah.
And you've also founded a political party called the WerteUnion, which is, I guess, sort of a conservative spin-off from the old CDU, the Christian Democratic Union Party.
I never wanted to be a politician. I have so learned a lot of politics, and I saw a lot of politicians during my more than 30 years career in the ministry and the public sector. But after I was dismissed as head of our service, I saw there were so many mistakes made by Merkel and the other politicians. And my party was the CDU, the former Conservative Party of Union and of Germany.
Right.
And Merkel turned it to the left, and we tried to turn it to the middle right, and it wasn't possible. So it is really a spin-off, my values union, WerteUnion, and we want to be the Conservative Party in Germany.
What the true Conservative Party, not this.
The true.
Yeah, not
the
this
fake.
Strange.
The CDU is a fake Conservative Party.
Right.
Merkel was a communist during the German Democratic GDR time in this area. She was really a part of the GDR establishment. And afterwards, from my point of view, she never changed her mind. She is still a socialist. And she turns the Conservative Party, CDU, to the left. And we weren't able to turn it back. So we are a spin-off, and we are the true and not the fake.
So you're a Make Germany Great Again organization.
We are patriots. We are real patriots. And I was in Washington at the beginning of this year twice. First at the inauguration ceremony of Donald Trump. Is what was really, really great. And I found myself as a real patriot, like the Americans who were more than 30,000 were in the Washington arena. I found myself at home, and we have to have such events also in Germany. the second event I attended at the beginning of the year was at CPAC in February. It was really, really great. And I think the Americans, the conservative Americans, are really a model for us here in Europe, not only in Germany, but also in France, in the Netherlands. And I think we have to understand that we have to work together, close together, against the wokists. I call them the Bolsheviks, against the liberals, against the leftists. They want to destroy our lives. And it is not conservative to say they are only men and women and nothing more. It isn't conservative, it's normal.
Yes.
And everyone who tells me there are more than two sexes, they are insane, they are mad.
Yeah, the chromosomes speak for themselves. There's just
it's true.
XX and XY, that's it. You can have all sorts of feelings and ideas, but they deny the actual science, and that's the key point there. I want to talk about something in the news. Just in the last few days, I saw a very disturbing headline that talked about the German, well, it would be in America, it's the German equivalent of the FBI, the Bundeskriminalamt, the Federal Criminal Office, conducted a raid on about 170 Germans, a dawn raid, so kicking in doors and raiding homes and seizing computers
at
and
6
phones.
o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so were these all violent terrorists who were about to blow up a building or something? Who were these people who were raided?
So in Germany, we have special regulation in our penal law. It's, you can say, opinion delicts, opinion criminal offenses. So it is prohibited to criticize politicians in a way which could be an offense against them. It's a really quite new law which was established, I think, under Merkel 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
And afterwards, a lot of politicians used this law against political opponents, against ordinary people. So, and we have a lot of judges, left-wing judges, who use this law against ordinary voters, ordinary people, and the impact is that at 6 o'clock in the morning, the people they get a visit of police officers and a search against themselves. So it's really strange. You can say we have a lot of criminals in Germany, a lot of people who are really strong offenders against because of rape, because of other very serious crimes, but they are not, they do not get any search at home.
So, I mean, just for clarity, this is a case where people who would call a politician an idiot or a jerk or an incompetent fool, if you made tweets or not tweets, if you had X posts or you put something on Facebook or Instagram, and let's say that you were not very polite. Let's say you used hard language and you said, you know, this person is a horse's ass or some hard language or term. That's now become criminalized in Germany. That is a forbidden act.
It's really true. A lot of people speak at home or with friends in such with such words about politicians. Yeah, he's an idiot, she's an idiot, and so on. Not even they didn't use the word asshole, but idiot. It's often used in Germany.
Right.
But you can face a search at home even if you do not post this. but you reposted, retweeted.
Right.
Yeah? Somebody posted.
And you thought it was funny or interesting, and you reposted it, and you're guilty for advancing that thought.
Yeah.
This is literally a thought crime. This is Orwellian. Supposedly, in the reunification of Germany, supposedly the West won, but these are Stasi tactics. This is.
But if you say in Germany, it's like Stasi. If you say in Germany, it is not okay to do so. Yeah,
that's a crime.
It could be a crime. So a lot of people are afraid to express their own opinion because it could be that on the other day the police is at 6 o'clock knocking at your door.
So this is really an effort by the left to suppress the center and center right.
Yes,
this is an effort to shut down any kind of dissent or argument.
Yes, I think so. And for another example is a right-wing journalist. He was editor of a right-wing magazine. He posted on X a picture of the former Minister of the Interior, or the Minister of the Interior at this time. Right. She was Mrs. Faeser, and she put the sentence on this picture: "I dislike the freedom of expression." Yeah, he put it on this picture. It was a collage. Right. Yeah. And he was put to court, and he was punished for 7 months of prison, because he put this into the internet. As a journalist, as an editor of a magazine. Right. So we have a big discussion about the freedom of the press, freedom of expression, but the left-wingers, they decide there's expression and freedom of expression, freedom of speech, but hatred and everything which is right-wing and which is conservative is not speech, is not free, does not fall under the constitutional law of freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So it's hatred. So and in this case, the judges decided in this way that is not a part of which is under the law of freedom of expression and freedom of journalists and the media.
For the BKA to go out and conduct these raids in the morning, under German law, are they required to get a warrant?
Yes.
So judges, I'm guessing all left-wing judges, reviewed these 170 cases, and they signed off, they approved it, and said, go ahead, do these raids of these people's homes.
Yes, it's true. Unfortunately, it's true. But we had we call it the long march through the institutions. Right. The left-wingers started the march through the institution, and this means also the courts in the 70s, in the 1970s. And at the moment, we have left-wingers in all instances, in all areas of our courts. And I think in America you have a similar problem.
We do.
With judges. They don't want to judge. They are political activists.
Yes.
So and in Germany we have a similar problem. We do not have judges. We have political activists.
Right.
And
it's just another political appointee in a black robe. That's all.
It's a political activist in black robe. Yeah.
Right. I understand that law enforcement in Germany actually encourages ordinary citizens to report on one another. So if you see a post that you think might offend someone, they want you to report that person to law enforcement or to the social media site.
It's true, not only to the law enforcement agencies, but also to so-called NGOs, non-governmental organizations. And from my point of view, a lot of non-governmental organizations are GONGOs, governmental, organized non-governmental organizations, because they are paid by the government. Yeah,
they're front groups. Yeah.
Yeah, and they get money from different funds, and they are tasked by the government to do this and to collect information against political opponents. We have some, for example, the so-called Amadeo Antonio Stiftung. It's a foundation, and the head of this foundation is a former Stasi officer, and the task of this foundation is to fight against conservative and right-wing people, and they do it. And from my point of view, they are in a close cooperation with governmental institutions, with ministries, and with politicians. So there's a network of governmental organization and non-governmental organization, and the aim is to fight against political opponents, against conservative and right-wing opponents.
Has anyone done an analysis and sort of mapped out or reported these associations between these groups and then the legal entities? Has anyone exposed that network in detail?
Yes, I think there are some people who did it, but I must confess we as a conservative and as a right-wing opposition are quite weak. We do not have such money like the governmental funded NGOs have. But we did such work, and we know there is a very big network of organizations who call themselves, we are the Civile Organisation, which means we are a part of we are the known governmental organization and clubs in Germany, but they are all not non-governmental. They are the organizations of the leftists, of the liberals, of the wokists, and they all get money either from the governmental funds or they get funding from international organizations or from local sponsors.
A lot of what you were describing just a moment ago concerning law enforcement and legal activity is what we here in the United States call lawfare. This is the use of legal actions, whether it's law enforcement or some type of action in a court to punish political opposition. And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with reality. No facts are required. You can manufacture evidence, you can lie. We've seen this obviously with President Trump, where there's an effort to bankrupt him and to jail him, eventually to try to kill him twice. So anything is on the table. Any option is available to the left in this process or this program. But when it comes to the use of law enforcement, I just wonder, so is there anything else that the BKA, anything else that they could have been doing on the morning of the 25th besides raiding those 170 people? Is all the other crime in Germany, everything is peaceful, everything is taken care of? There's nothing else the BKA could be looking at? You know, human trafficking, drug smuggling, criminal enterprises, they have nothing else better to do.
So we have a lot of security issues here in Germany, especially with the migrants. We have more than, I think, 4 million migrants from all over the Islamic world here in Germany. They came during the last 10 years. And we have a lot of security problems with young male migrants. We had terrorist attacks, for example, against the Christian market here in Berlin a couple of years ago. And in this summer, nearly every day we have problems in the public swimming pools with young male Muslims against young girls and women. So, we had a great number of really crime of migrants in Germany. I think more than 43 or 45% of rapes, of murder, and similar crimes were committed by migrants here in Germany. And this public, everyone knows about it, but the BKA or the police doesn't change the work. This means they do not say, oh, we have here a major problem.
Right.
We have to do everything to stop it. We have to do everything to go back to the last 10 years ago. We have to have another police policy. No,
right.
They don't do anything. So, but they do a lot against the rightists, the political rightists. They call them fight against the rightists, fight against the conservatives. And this means they put a lot of resources against the political opponents. And from my point of view, it's like in socialist countries, the fight against the political opposition is not really a fight against opponents. It's a fight against enemies. They want to destroy them. They want to neutralize them. They want to put them to jail. They want to instrumentalize the criminal law against the political opponents. We saw it in every socialist country, in the socialist country like the GDR,
Sure.
like the Czechoslovakia, and so on. And today, unfortunately, I must say, we see it in a lot of so-called Western countries as well, when the wokists and the liberals dominate the politics. We see it in Germany, we see it in France, we see it in nearly every country. I talked to a Polish friend. He was a former deputy minister of justice in Poland.
Right.
He got a political asylum in Hungary because he is politically persecuted in Poland. And he explained me the situation there. And the situation is that the Tusk regime, the Tusk government of Donald Tusk, they use the instruments of the police and the security services and of the judges of the courts against political opponents. And this is against the law. This is against our values, and this is against the treaties of human rights.
Yes.
And unfortunately, there's no broader discussion about it in our countries.
So there's two instances of this that I want to touch on. One is an institutional or an organizational effort, a target of your security service, and the other is a personal one. And so the institutional one was pointed out by our Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, where they pointed out and really condemned, criticized very strongly how the political party AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, the AfD, which is a very popular, large, growing political party, has been targeted as a domestic extremist group by the BFV, and that they're actively spying on them. And then, I mean, if you'd like to share your own personal experience, you yourself, you have been targeted. The former chief of the agency, they've now turned around and gone after you, which seems ridiculous just at face value. It's preposterous. given your background, your history, your credentials. How is it that the largest popular party in Germany are named, enemies, and why are you personally subjected to this kind of surveillance and monitoring?
Yeah, first to the AfD. The AfD is the biggest opposition party in Germany. It's a right-wing party.
Right.
In Germany, we have a law which allows the domestic intelligence service, the BFE, so my former service, to observe political parties. It's I was strongly against it when I was head of our service. I was against it. My service observed the left-wing parties, the Linke. It was the former SED, the state party of the GDR.
Right.
So it was a communist party. And I said to my staff, to my people at this time, folks, I'm strongly against that an intelligence service, which is run by a high-ranking official, but he is a political appointee, and his boss is a minister who is member of a party, that this service is allowed to observe, to track a competitor in election. So I think Germany and also Austria, we are the only countries in the Western world which allow the services, the domestic intelligence service, to survey, to observe political parties. So I was strongly against it. But when I was dismissed, I think one of the first new decision was to observe the AfD. So, and this means the AfD could be observed by sending undercover agents into the party to get information from the party, from the internal circle of the party, also to track telecommunication of the party. So in Germany, it sounds totally normal. And I try to compare it with other countries. For example, with the United States, you remember, of course, the so-called Watergate scandal.
Sure.
When Richard Nixon had to leave the White House because he tracked the Democratic Party in 1972, I think. So, and for American ears and eyes, it wasn't normal what the FBI or CIA agent did in the Watergate complex. In Germany, it's totally normal that the Ministry of the Interior says, so the AfD is a target of our service. And a lot of journalists say, hi, super.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah. So there was a time in America where it was impossible under Nixon, but then when it comes to Trump, the entire intelligence and law enforcement apparatus was targeted at Trump. So we have our own history of the CIA and FBI attacking the opposition party.
Yeah, it's really true. But I think there's still a rest of sensibility in the feeling of the American people and also the journalists. In Germany, it sounds totally normal. Okay, it's the AfD. It's normal. It's allowed. Yeah, well done that you observe and track the AfD politicians.
And so just for a moment, you mentioned undercover agents penetrating party organizations and meetings and making contacts, basically human intelligence collection against the party. But it also means electronic surveillance, telecommunication intercept, mail operations, opening mail, Bundespost. It means tracking movements. It means, wiretap. It's the full, all of the national level investigative techniques are targeted against the party. It's the full spectrum.
I think you have to differ. Some special instruments are only allowed under special preconditions.
Okay.
For example, yeah. So, but you can send into the party undercover agents. You can do OSINT. You can do human against the party.
Right.
For SIGINT, also signal intelligence, we have to fill as a service special preconditions. But the level is quite low. It's quite low.
Yeah. So you just answered my question, but yeah. Yeah. So maybe I'm too cynical. Maybe I'm, but I just imagine that every single technique was, and probably still is being used, because I know what happens. It's very rare for a government service that has a power for them to decide not to use it. They almost always use every power that's available to them.
It's normal. I think it's normal for human beings to think so. Yeah, and especially for politicians. And your second question was about me. Yes,
right. Yeah,
I'm also a target of my former service, of my former staff. So greetings to my staff.
Yes, we're going to say hello. Hello to our friends at the Bundesamt für Verfassungsschutz.
Yes. In January last year, I think it was about the 5th of January, I announced that I want to establish a new party, a split off of the Christian Democratic Union.
Right.
And some days later, a German newspaper published Maassen as target of the German Domestic Intelligence Service of the BFV because he's a right-wing extremist. After this, I asked for information. My former service, I got some information, and I sued the service. And it is. I have a lawsuit against them in Cologne at the administrative court. So I'm a target of my service from my point of view, because I'm a party founder of a new party, and they wrote me, Maassen is a right-wing extremist, for example, because he uses expressions right-wing extremists often use. For example, I used the expression globalists in an article. It was published in the United States, this article. I used often the expression globalists of people who are who stands for the globalist ideology.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and
they all meet at Davos. You can go there and
and I know Donald Trump. When I was in at the CPAC in Hungary, also Orban, they often use the expression globalists.
Right.
And I can imagine that also a person like Mr. Schwab, Klaus Schwab from Davos, from the World Economic Forum, could use this expression also. But I did it, and the service wrote to the court, Maassen used the expression globalist, and he means use. Because in the right-wing scene, the expression globalist is another expression for the Jewish financial elite at the East Coast. So the Wall Street use. So if I use the expression globalist, I want to say the youth are the people who are in favor of the globalist transformation. So, and therefore, I'm an anti-Semite and a right-wing extremist.
I think that when they wrote that, they illuminated their own thinking more than anybody else's thinking. I think they expose their sort of twisted interpretation of just, I think, a very ordinary word that people can read into it all kinds of crazy things. But if that isn't what you said, then that isn't. I mean, just using a word like globalist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like saying nationalist or sovereigntist. I mean, what does that mean?
Another example from the letter of the BFV to the court was Maassen asked in an interview last year in summer whether President Biden was able was mentally able
right.
For his decision, and whether when he is not able, when he is dement or when he is ill,
right.
Who decides for him? I asked this. It was not it was not an expression. It was a question. So I asked.
So you weren't accusing. You weren't accusing anyone. I
didn't accuse.
You were raising the question.
I raised a question, and the BFV said, "This is a question typically right-wing extremists use because Maassen wanted to say Biden is a puppet, and when he is a puppet, this means a deep state uses this puppet for their dirty decisions, for their ugly political decisions." So, and this is the meaning, this is the world of thinking of right-wing extremists. So I think today everyone in the United States and also in Germany should know that the former President Biden was dement, that he was mentally ill. Yeah. So, but my former service accused me of raising a question whether he was able for decision, mentally able, or is he a puppet of other people? It's ridiculous.
History has validated your question. You're allowed to ask questions. That's the BFV people who are watching our interview. Take note. You're allowed to ask questions, and history has proven, because it was just about a year ago when Biden and Trump had their debate, and Biden clearly was completely at a loss. It was such a disastrous performance on his part. His own political party pushed him out. His own advisors pushed him out. And now we learn all about this auto pen, this device that is used for signing official documents. And there's pretty clear evidence that auto pen was being used perhaps without the president's knowledge or decision. So, your question has been validated in a year. So maybe your friends at the BFV, maybe they should submit a new briefing and update their filing with the court saying that actually Herr Maassen was 100% correct. The court might be interested in that.
Yeah, we laugh about it, but I think such a service is a danger for a free democracy.
It is. It is 100%. What sort of relief are you seeking from the court? What will if the court rules in your favor? What will happen?
I think the court will decide that the doing of my former service is wrong, is against the law, and they have to stop it. So the other question is whether the people who decided to observe, to track me, did something against our penal law.
Right.
And I'm strongly in favor that those people, the former Minister of the Interior, Mrs. Faeser, and my successor, Haltenbank, were put to the court because of doing something against our penal code. It's a crime from my point of view. It's a crime not only against me as a private person, as a political person, but more, it's a crime against our democracy.
Right.
To misuse, to instrumentalize intelligence service against ordinary people, against people of the political sector. I think it's against our democracy, and they are a danger of our democracy.
Does the average German, do they now think twice about public criticism? Do they sort of keep their head down, and are they a little more cautious because they realize that if they are too outspoken, or if they disagree, or if they ask unpleasant questions, that somehow they will be targeted?
I think the ordinary Germans, especially in the West, who do not have the experience of a dictatorship like the people in the eastern part of Germany, they are very cautious because they all are dependent. They are dependent as employees, they are dependent as people who work for the government, or as entrepreneurs who work for the government. So they all are cautious. Nobody wants to be exposed as an opponent of the government.
No one wants to be made an example of.
Yeah. And in the eastern part, the people are more, they frankly speak out what they see. Yeah. As I said, Maassen, you are from the West, we are from the future. We know it all. Yeah. We had it until 1990. So, and they are against it. And they are more strong and aggressive against this transformation of our free society.
Well, I think that the comments from Vice President Vance at the Munich Security Conference were very important. I know that they upset a lot of the establishment German officials. They were crying, and they were very frantic and upset that some American vice president would come there and say mean words to them. They were very upset by that, but I think they were very important words. And likewise, Secretary Rubio, our Secretary of State, he too has said that the pattern and the behavior in Germany is outrageous, because frankly, it's one element of a series of things across Europe. Marine Le Pen, of course, has been tried to be pushed out by a conviction. There was the election in Poland, which thankfully turned out okay, but maybe not. And you mentioned Marcin Romanowski, the former vice minister of justice. There's the Romanian elections that were overturned, and they installed what appears to be a puppet of the Brussels. And of course, the United Kingdom is crazy. They have the same kind of thought crimes that you do, where if you say the wrong thing, all of a sudden, just for thinking or speaking an idea that's unpopular, you could potentially go to jail. So it's a very disturbing pattern, and I'm glad Vance said what he did, and I'm glad Rubio has done that as well. I think it's terribly important for the American audience, the people that'll be watching this, Judicial Watch supporters largely. They have a very keen awareness of lawfare. They appreciate these tactics, these techniques, and they're very disturbed that this is going on in Germany. So before we reach the end of the show, I want to give you an opportunity to explain to an American audience why it is so important that the American public understand the danger of what's happening in Germany.
You described it totally correctly. It's not only a German problem. It's not only a British or a French problem. It's a problem not only of Europe, but of the Western world.
Yeah.
And you saw it in the United States until Donald Trump became president. It was the same. And I think it was much more stronger in the United States than in Germany today. I think it differs in a special sense, but I think it is a common concept of the liberals, of the wokists against free democracies.
Right.
In the United States, in Germany, in United Kingdom, in France, all over the Western world. So from my point of view, it's very important to fight against it. And not only Germany or Britain or France or United States, we have to stand together. We have to stand against this. And I think in 4 years, there are elections in the United States. Nobody knows about the successor of Donald Trump.
Yep.
And I had the expression that the liberals, the leftists, the wokists from the United States are now in Brussels, and they are in Berlin, and they are in London and in Paris. And they want to return. They want to go back. And they hope after Trump, there will be someone else from the Democrat Party, and all the transformation, all the reforms of Donald Trump will be changed. So therefore, there's a need to fight against all the liberals, against all the wokists here in Europe. It's not only in the interests of the European countries, but also in the interest of the United States. We have to have a final battle against them, but otherwise, I think all the same will start again in the United States, and all what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have done and will do is for nothing, because the people will return to the United States, and everything, all the liberal, stupid things will start again.
You earlier described as, you introduced the word Bolshevik, and I think that's exactly the mentality of the
I
left.
said Bolsheviks.
Bolsheviks, yeah. But I think it's a very, very accurate way of describing the sort of radical, militant
and fanatic
approach from the left.
Yeah.
We're going to put in the show notes of this podcast, we will put your website, your internet website, and that of the Values Union as well. So if people want to learn more about you and your work, as well as your party, the Values Union, that information will be available so folks can, looking at this podcast or listening to it, will be able to click on that and follow you and get more information as well.
Thank you.
As we close out, I'm going to give the last word to you. What does an American audience need to know?
I think a lot of people in Germany, I think also in some parts of the United States, are really frustrated because of the liberals, of the leftists. I think at New York, I think there will be election of the mayor.
That's crazy. It's crazy.
It's really crazy. And I say to my supporters, don't be frustrated. We will win. We will win. The reality is always conservatives, and therefore we will win. It's like a physical law. And therefore we have to have time, yes. It will take time to change our society in a good manner. But at the end, we will win, and fight, fight, fight.
That's a very strong message and a very accurate one. I agree with you 100%. Hans-Georg Maassen, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you joining us on the show.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was great to be here.
Thank you again. I'm Chris Farrell, on watch.